from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Harvest yields look good in the Delta, plus national crop condition updates from USDA.
I'm Michelle Rook. What is Congress likely to get done on top ag issues before the end of the year? I'll have details today on Ag Day.
In agribusiness, milk markets.
The market is trying to figure out how to balance our domestic inventories, which are large, against this world market that's maintained some good premium values.
And the search is on for these canines, the prize, a valuable kitchen commodity.
Ag Day, presented by the Chevy Silverado. High-strength steel for high-strength dependability.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. It's nice to be back from Mexico, where I spent last week looking at the implications of the NAFTA talks on U.S. grain trade to Mexico. Now, we talked to end users, grain elevators, and shippers in Mexico to see what's at stake. I'll have those reports starting on Wednesday. Now, to today's top story. Monday's crop progress report shows a 2-point gain in overall crop conditions for corn, 62% now good to excellent. Now, most of the top corn growing states saw a slight improvement, but Iowa seeing a 3-point slide, 61% now good to excellent. That's 9 straight weeks where Iowa corn conditions have dropped. On June 19th, it was 80% good to excellent. Now to soybeans, there's a 1-point drop off this week, 59% rated as good to excellent. We see a downgrade in Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska, and Ohio. And in the South, cotton conditions climbing 4 points this week with 61% rated good to excellent. And the peanut crop showing some strength, 80% of that crop now good to excellent. That's up a point from last week. Following last week's release of the August crop production estimates, many market analysts were wondering about the validity of the data. In particular, they wondered about the apparent disconnect between crop conditions reported as lower than a year ago, but projected yields were higher. On Monday's edition of AgriTalk, USDA's NASS chief, Lance Honig, explaining how crop conditions and crop progress are two different reports collected by different sets of people at USDA.
Crop condition information comes from a list of reporters that, provide that information to us week in and week out. We're looking at a lot of county extension agents, and what we're asking them to tell us is based on, what you see, what you hear this week. How would you rate the overall condition of the various crops across your county? And that's a little bit different question even than asking somebody, what do you expect your yield to be?
Honig says for the August report, more weight is given to farmer reports than enumerator surveys because often there are no ears to count. As we first reported last week, farmers throughout the South have seen some big gains in statewide average yields. Most of the states in that region planting fewer corn acres this year, thereby lowering total production. However, from Kentucky to Georgia and from North Carolina to Louisiana, farmers are seeing impressive yield bumps due to timely rains. In Louisiana, a state not known for its corn production, yields are 27 bushels higher per acre. In this report from the LSU Ag Center, Craig Gautreaux tells us how good those crops look as combines roll.
Kyle Lemoyne is busy harvesting what could be his best corn crop. Favorable conditions throughout the early growing season got his crop off to a fast start, and he and other growers throughout Louisiana are reaping the benefits of early planting.
You have a chance of catching some of the better rainfall that still happens in the early spring. And also the cooler temperatures give you a better pollination on the corn crop, and also you kind of beat the insect pressure.
Timely and ample rainfall have also contributed to higher yields and reduced the cost of producing the crop, according to Dan Fromme, the LSU Ag Center's corn specialist.
You don't have to roll that pipe out. You don't have to pump that water, pumping costs. That's always a good feeling when you don't have to, spend the money on water.
Not all of the state's corn crop is irrigated, but Fromme does not believe there will be a significant difference between the yields of irrigated and non-irrigated fields.
Central Louisiana, south, doesn't have much irrigation, and then when that yield monitor is well over 200 bushels and not being irrigated, you can get excited really quick.
High yields will help offset the low prices farmers are receiving for their corn. Some farmers are storing their corn in hopes of higher prices in the future.
I think I'm going to sit on my corn for a while and see if we can get a better price on it as the season progresses.
Rain has slowed the corn harvest recently, but growers are expecting to have the harvest finished by the end of August. With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Gautreaux reporting.
Keeping things in perspective, acres of total production in those 9 southern states add up to just over 5 million acres. Iowa farmers will harvest about 13 million acres this year. Let's check on your first weather in farm country. Mike Hoffman has details and crop comments. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Clinton. This morning's crop comment comes from Lance Fikert in Buckland, Kansas. Lance sending us pictures of irrigated soybeans and dryland sorghum. He says the area needs some moisture to finish out the crops. The U.S. Drought Monitor says nearly 79% of the state is abnormally dry, almost 24% in a moderate drought right now. And taking a look at the weather map for today, you can see Tropical Storm Gert offshore. That should stay there, but we have a couple of systems affecting the lower 48. We'll have your forecast for where those are headed next, coming up in weather. But first, here are some hometown temps.
Visit farmjournalpro.com. Trusted analysis, professional insight. farmjournalpro.com.
With a year more than half over, Congress and the administration still haven't delivered on many of the promises they campaigned on last fall. This is a concern to farmers in Minnesota who are challenged by low commodity prices, high taxes, and problems with the Affordable Care Act. Michelle Rook has reaction from this year's Farm Fest in Morgan, Minnesota.
Health care, tax reform, as well as an infrastructure bill were all on the to-do list for Congress for this year. But farmers here in Minnesota are doubtful Congress will make headway on any of those issues before the end of the year. A panel on rural health care looked at solutions for farmers facing high health care costs and high premiums, as they're generally on individual markets.
People on the individual market in greater Minnesota this year and last year have really struggled trying to not only buy health insurance because it's been really expensive, but then also making insurance available.
You know, the farmer's income, if it's a little bit too high, doesn't qualify for the subsidized health care. So they really are the ones that are getting hit the hardest in that. You know, there needs to be a way to bring them into the fold.
Farmers want health care done to pave the way for tax reform. And groups like Farm Bureau say in addition to preserving Section 179, they also have a wish list.
Immediate expensing, helping the capital gains, lower the capital gains, cash accounting. There's a lot of things that we'd like to do away with the inheritance tax.
Minnesota Congressman Tim Wall says he thinks tax reform needs to result in a fairer tax code.
I've never viewed tax reform as just code word for raising or lowering. I always kind of viewed it as simplification and fair reform. So I'm still open to the idea.
The president has also touted a $1 trillion infrastructure plan, and rural America wants to be included as it's critical to U.S. exports.
We all know how old our transportation system is on our locks and dams, and even some of the roads and bridges that we have.
That's the only way that the United States can remain competitive is if we get a shot in the arm on the building of that infrastructure.
However, farmers attending Farm Fest are doubtful for much progress on any ag issues the balance of 2017.
I feel that there's too much unrest and unhappiness out in Washington, D.C., and nobody's going to want to work together.
At Farm Fest, I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
Milk markets are keeping it interesting heading into fall. We'll take a closer look coming up in agribusiness. And in our dairy report, changes in U.S. policy involving a very specific milk product at the center of a trade spat. And canines are getting a second chance, and you might not believe what they're searching for. Ty Morgan joins us again today for a closer look at dairy markets, including cheese prices. It's our analysis for this morning. Ty?
Here now with Mike North of Commodity Risk Management Group. Mike, we had seen impressive butter prices, impressive cheese prices. Kind of where do we stand at this point in August?
August is still in the same place we were back this spring, where the market is trying to figure out how to balance our domestic inventories, which are large, against this world market that's maintained some good premium values. So when we talk about cheese specifically, the block price just made a move up towards 178. It's now retraced back towards the 160s, and the reality is the block market is trying to kind of be the go-between between the big barrel inventory and its lower prices and the big world values that are trading 180, 190, and the market is going to remain torn for a long time because our dairymen continue to produce more milk and we continue to show big inventories. But seasonally, we're in a place too where buyers are ramping up for the holidays. And so we've seen a little bit of willingness by the buyers to come to our markets. That's what provided the big run in cheese in late July. We're likely due for some more of that as we head towards fall and a few buyers push the panic button to get their hands on inventory. So we're looking for some higher prices, I think, sporadically, but they're not very likely to be long-lived.
Yeah, exactly. So what impact is this having on milk prices moving forward? I mean, do you think that we peaked, or because seasonally we typically will ramp higher, do you think there's still some more to move higher in milk prices?
I think there's some room to move higher in the near term. If you look at 2018 values, they've barely changed at all, and that is the market saying, hey, you can do what you want in the front end, but we are still looking at big inventories on the back end, and we're not going to run values very high. So 1660 averages through the first half of 2018. The last part of 2017 right now is looking at values around 1680. We were at 1730 just a couple of weeks ago. So that's kind of the market that we're in. I see us maybe trading back to that 17 and a quarter to 1750. When we get there, that becomes an opportunity for dairymen and one that should be addressed.
So not much above 1730 though.
It'll be very difficult given where we're at with whey values and this ongoing flux in cheese prices.
All right, thanks so much, Mike. We appreciate it. Stay with us. We have the weather coming up next.
Cut through the uncertainty in the markets. Give Mike a call at 608-764-0012.
Welcome back to AgDay. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman. Mike, it's good to be looking at forecasts here in the U.S. again. I'll tell you what the forecast was in Mexico last week. Hot. And mostly humid. But it looks like there could be some storms for folks in the Western Plains.
Yeah, and that could be some good news for some of that area, no question about that. So as we start today, you can see this stalled out front across the southeast into the south central plains, and then the next cold front coming in. So when you put the maps into motion, first of all, you'll notice GERD's not going to affect anybody along the shore. It's going to stay well offshore, no real issues except for shipping. By later today, we'll see some areas of showers and thunderstorms in the Dakotas. That's fantastic because most of that area is at least in a moderate drought, if not worse. And then you can see scattered showers and thunderstorms down along the front in eastern New Mexico, western Texas. Scattered showers and thunderstorms kind of in the heat, but to the south of that front there that has stalled out across Tennessee. Now heading through tonight, we're going to see a continuation of showers and storms, especially along the northern portions of this cold front moving across the northern plains. Warm front, sometimes we'll have some big activity, not really showing that at this point. And then heading through the daytime hours tomorrow, you can see even more showers and thunderstorms bubbling up in the humid part of this storm system and in the northern half of this cold front. So really the northern half of the plains, this is going to be a pretty good rainmaker, and a lot of that area does need it. Let's take a look at precipitation estimates over the past 24 hours. We've seen some pretty heavy amounts in some complexes across parts of Arkansas and some of the surrounding states like northern Mississippi. Adding in the next 36 hours, you will notice how our model is putting down some pretty decent amounts in some areas anyway across the northern half of the plains. And it's going to add a little bit across the southern portions of the plains and some decent amounts throughout the southeast into the Carolinas. So that appears to be the wettest areas over the next couple of days. High temperatures this afternoon going back into the 90s in a large area from Kansas southward. Still comfortable though, the northern plains, Great Lakes into the northeast. Low temperatures tonight going to drop off pretty good again. You can see a lot of 50s in the northern tier of states, but there's that one little section that does warm up. Lows of only 70s in Omaha. That's pretty muggy for this time of the year. And that mugginess continues mainly south of that front for the southern half of the country, a little bit cooler farther north. So here's the jet stream. We are getting into a transition period. We're seeing that trough move away, so that allows a little bit more heat to come east. But you'll notice we still try to have these little troughs going from west to east across the country. So not the big trough in the east anymore, but we do have some changes coming. But the ridge tries to build back by next week into the western portions of the country. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. We head to Clovis, New Mexico. First of all, partly sunny, a late day thunderstorm possible, high around 90. Huron, South Dakota, more humid, an afternoon storm around, high of 76. And Xenia, Ohio, partly sunny, warm and humid, high of 85.
All right, when we come back, the FDA relaxes a policy the dairy industry has pushed to change for 20 years. Plus, rescue dogs are put to the test. What they're trained to find will fetch top dollar. Find out what it is later on Ag Day.
Ever wake up wondering what does today's weather have in store? Well, with weather updates, it delivers the local forecast right to your cell phone each morning to make preparing for the day easier. Just text Weather 6 to 31313 to get started.
The Food and Drug Administration is easing its policy on some domestic milk products. It's a change the dairy industry has been pushing for some 20 years, but trade tensions with Canada brought it to the forefront. Betsy Gibbon joins us now with more details. Betsy?
Earlier this year, Canada changed its policy and stopped importing ultra-filtered milk products, also known as UF milk, from the United States. It left many U.S. dairies and processors like Grassland Dairy Products scrambling at finding a home for its product. Now the FDA is relaxing domestic standards so the product can be used more in the United States. Before, UF milk products could only be produced at a handful of certain cheese plants in the U.S. It could not be transferred to multiple locations and had stipulations on labeling. Now industry leaders say fewer regulations mean the product can be taken to multiple plants. It reduces hauling costs and increases cheese yield. In an email, the FDA says the FDA is taking this action now due to recent changes in some export markets that have caused the U.S. dairy industry to experience an oversupply and pricing challenges with domestically produced UF milk. The Wisconsin Cheesemakers Association praised the announcement, stating there's been an oversupply of milk in the U.S. for over a year, causing real financial stress for dairy farm families. This decision can lead to more production of fluid ultra-filtered milk and find new markets for our abundant milk supplies. Some dairy experts say while the change has to deal with trade, they don't think the move was made intentionally this week during the start of NAFTA trade negotiations.
I don't think this has too much to do with the trade negotiations that are just about to start. I think it's more a means of providing some relief for those few plants that did make this product and had been selling it up into Canada, because they can now have the possibility of selling it domestically.
Stevenson says it's hard for him to see where this gives the United States an edge in trade negotiations. Stevenson says if more plants can manufacture the product, it can be moved to other plants which don't have enough milk. He says, for example, California has the plants and is capable of taking more milk, and they may actually want the product.
All right, thanks, Betsy. A new report by the Migration Policy Institute says the number of undocumented farm workers is falling. Now, it looked at data from the Department of Labor and found that from the year 2000 to 2014, undocumented workers in the ag sector fell from 55% of workers to 47%. The shift mostly attributed to a drop in immigration following that 2008 recession. Industry groups say they believe that number is still shrinking. The report also finding that U.S. farm workers are now mostly Mexican-born men, and roughly half of farm workers receive Medicaid, food stamps, or other benefits in 2014. When we come back, training to track down truffles. It's a high-dollar delicacy in the land down under.
In the Country, brought to you by Kubota's M5 series, bringing new levels of comfort to hard work. Learn more at Kubota.com or visit your local Kubota dealer today.
Edible truffles, the fungus version and not the chocolate kind, are held in high esteem in many European kitchens, and now they're earning a reputation in the land down under with the help of rescue dogs. These rescue dogs have been trained to become truffle hunters. The fungi fetch about 3,000 Australian dollars per kilo. That's about 2,300 US dollars for about 2 pounds of the delicacy. The dogs find the fungus at the base of trees, and then tourists dig it up.
So the dogs will come along and start sniffing and indicate where a truffle is, and then we'll get down and smell it to make sure it's mature to come out, or leave it for the following week.
I get my dogs at around 12 to 18 months of age, and that it doesn't matter what breed they are, and I'm looking for a certain drive that the dog will have.
French says he's been using skills he honed in training bomb detector dogs to help truffle hunting dogs. Now, by the way, about 85% of those truffles that are produced in Tasmania are shipped overseas. All right, all that for a fungus. That's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. Start your day with us. For Tyne Morgan, Betsy Gibbon, and Mike Hoffman, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day in farm country.
AgDay is powered by Ram Trucks, America's longest lasting pickups.